If you're having problems with your backhand dink, I can guarantee you're making these top 5 worst backhand dink mistakes. Backhand dink is a difficult shot to master if you're not learning it the right way, but it's super, super important, and you're not going to reach a high level unless you have a nice, consistent backhand dink. Today, I'm going to break down the top 5 worst backhand dink mistakes, so that way you can get consistent on your backhand, turn it into a weapon, and maybe even create some offense on it so that players are afraid to hit to your backhand instead of hitting to it every single time. The first mistake that I see all the time on backhand dinks, and this one is a huge culprit of pop-ups, is cutting the ball. Taking a huge high to low to high swing at it. Now, a lot of players do this to try to create spin and put some slice on the ball, which, look, spin's great, but if you're taking this huge cut, you're gonna end up popping up the ball. If the ball pops up, spin doesn't really do too much for you. So when I take this huge high to low to high swing, that ball ends up coming up super high. It goes way past the kitchen, and any good opponent is gonna blast that, especially if I'm going cross court. Now my partner's exposed, and he or she is gonna get that ball sped right up at them. When I'm looking to create slice, instead of taking this huge high to low to high cut at the ball, I wanna open up my paddle face, start from straight behind the ball, and swing in a straight line. That swing with my open paddle face is gonna get me all the slice I need, and I'm not gonna lose control of the ball. So again, when I start, I'm gonna set my paddle face open, and from here, I'm just gonna swing straight through to my target with that open paddle face. The open paddle face is where I get my spin, not from the cut. Yes, you will get spin from cutting it, but you're gonna get too much spin, and you're gonna swing too hard, which is gonna make the ball go too far. So I come from straight behind the ball, and straight through to my target. This ball does have backspin on it, but it's a lot shorter, so it's not getting attacked. When I cut, that's where it goes too high, and I end up getting attacked. The next mistake is having a bent elbow and chopping at it through the swing. Now, this kind of ties into the first mistake, because when you're creating that cut, the tendency does tend to be to flare that elbow out and then chop through it. So instead, we want to keep that elbow perfectly straight through the entire shot. From start to finish, there's going to be zero bend in my elbow. My entire backhand dink swing is going to come from my dominant shoulder. I'm going to set behind the ball with that straight elbow, and from my shoulder now, I swing out to my target, and my finishing point is going to have the paddle at about the level of my shoulder. So if I draw a line from my shoulder straight, it hits my paddle. As long as I have that straight elbow, I'm going to be able to maintain control of the ball. When I chop at it with a bent elbow, that's where I'm going to run into a lot of mistakes. I'm either going to miss-hit it because I have a ton of moving parts, because this is an acceleration, and on dinks we can't really accelerate, or I'm going to overhit it if I do connect with it again because I'm accelerating, and that ball is just going to pop. So elbow has to be straight all the way through. And it doesn't matter what kind of backhand dink you're looking to hit, whether you're looking to hit a top spin roll, one-handed backhand dink, a slice dink, or a flat dink, we have to keep the elbow straight. I'll show you all three and watch my elbow position. So first, the roll, I come under and up, my elbow is straight. I hit my slice, my elbow is straight. I hit my flat one, my elbow is straight. So no matter whether it's an offensive, defensive, or neutral dink, I'm keeping a straight elbow the entire time. All swings come from the shoulder. So now we're going to continue down our arm. We had the elbow mistake. Now we're going to go to the wrist mistake. This is incredibly common. So many players are doing this, and this one simple tip can absolutely transform your dink and make you so much more consistent. Now this right here might look like it's a pretty good starting position for my backhand dink, but I actually want to bend that wrist back and then cock it up, because from here, now I can really get under the ball and lift it. Versus when I'm here, I end up rolling over the ball. So it's super important that I'm able to open up my paddle face to get under the ball and lift, again, no matter what kind of dink I'm hitting. So my wrist comes up and then it comes back. And then from here, I'm able to just get under and lift. And now, that wrist position stays the same for the entire swing. I'm never gonna flick. A lot of players will try to flick at the ball with their wrist here off the bounce. That's going to lead to a ton of inconsistencies because, again, we're accelerating. When we're hitting dinks, we don't want to accelerate. We don't want to use these smaller muscles that move the paddle super fast. We want everything to be slow, steady, and stable. So I'm going to set in that position with my wrist up and back, and I'm going to keep that position all the way through my swing. The second I flick is the second I lose control. So set, and then we're gonna hit all that swing again. Comes from the shoulder, elbow straight, wrist up, back, and lock. So again, I come under it. Notice how my paddle face is open because I'm getting my wrist up, back, and then lock. So I want my paddle tip to actually come up above the level of my wrist. If my paddle tip comes down, now I'm gonna run into some trouble. So we want that head of the paddle to end up above the level of our hand. If we drop it down here, that's a pretty good position for a backhand flick volley, but it's not really gonna do us too much good when we're picking up a dink off the ground because we can't get under the ball. Anything low, we have to get under. So I come up above my wrist, I'm good to go. So all the tips thus far have had to do with our swing. If you can do those three things, you're gonna be able to have a pretty good, solid, consistent swing, but your swing is no good if you can't get behind the ball. And a lot of times those errors end up coming out when we're reaching for the ball and not moving. So if I have my feet planted, heels on the ground, and I end up reaching for the ball, that's where I start to flick, chop, or slice. So what I wanna do instead is use my feet to get myself behind the ball. I wanna find my ideal contact point. So the best place for me to hit the ball as a player, and I'm gonna use my feet to get myself there every single time. So what I mean is if my ideal contact point for my backhand dink is right here, and this is pretty standard for most players, it'll be just inside your outside foot. I wanna be able to find this contact point no matter where the ball is on the court. So if it comes right to me and I don't have to move, that's great. But let's say my opponent hits it away from me. Now I'm gonna move in order to find that same contact point. So notice how no matter how wide he pulls me or whether or not he comes straight back to me, I'm finding that same contact point just inside my outside foot. And I'm using my feet to move side to side like a crab. I'm staying nice and low so I can get to that ball and have a consistent dink. If I didn't do that, I would end up flicking, I would end up cutting, I would end up slicing, and I'd end up chopping, and that's not gonna lead to a good shot. That's gonna be a pop-up or a missed dink. So here's a drill that will help you get to the ball and find your ideal contact point. So I'm gonna put my paddle down for this one. I'm gonna set up diagonally from my partner, who's now gonna toss the ball as if he's feeding me a cross-court dink. I'm gonna slide over, and I'm gonna catch it right in front of my leg, which is my contact point. So if I have my paddle in my hand, this would be the right spot to hit from. So I'm gonna catch and then stop so I can just get in the habit of getting there into the right position before hitting my dink. I'm gonna slide over, I catch it right there in front of my leg, toss it back, and then we repeat. So if you can do that over and over again, we can then pick up the paddle and the same exact thing applies. Just slide over, and I have it right in my ideal contact point. Now that you got the swing down and you got your footwork down, there's one more thing that you need to be doing in order to execute your perfect backhand dink. And that's gonna be using your legs to get down nice and low. So I know what to do with my arm, I know what to do with my feet, but if I get to the ball and I'm standing upright like this, I can't get under it and I'm gonna end up missing. And that again is so common where players will have a great swing, they'll have great footwork, but they're standing upright and they end up missing it right in the net. So what we need to do is have a nice deep knee bend. Wherever the level of the ball is, I need to bend my knees so that way my open paddle face can get under the ball. I'm not gonna bend my back because now I'm off balance. And look, my paddle tip is facing down to the ground. And I can't really get it up in a comfortable way when I'm bending from my back. So I'm gonna bend down from my knees so that way I can keep my paddle tip up, I can stay balanced at the line, come under and lift. So when I get to the ball, if I'm standing upright, I'm not gonna hit a consistent ball. So I have to get to the ball nice and low, and then I can swing through it using the perfect swing that I just practiced. Once you've mastered the one-handed backhand dink, you're feeling super consistent, super confident with it, and you're ready to take your dink to the next level with an offensive two-handed backhand dink, which can be a great addition to your game when you're ready for it. I'm gonna add in this bonus mistake that you should be avoiding, so that way when you add in the two-handed backhand dink, you're gonna be ready to go and start off on the right foot. So when I see a lot of players hitting this two-handed backhand dink, they tend to come over the top of the ball too much to force the top spin and roll over the top of it. If I'm looking to create top spin, I have to come from under and swing up the back of the ball without covering over it. This is actually gonna be counterproductive to my spin. So what I need to do is set under it, and then I'm gonna hit up the back of it with my paddle face, continuing to face towards my target. I'm gonna follow through up to my shoulder. So make sure when I hit this ball, I'm staying on the same side of it, coming from under and swinging up, as opposed to rolling over the top. So this is what I want to avoid. That's gonna make the ball go down. I want it to come under, paddle face to my target, and swing straight up.